Hello and welcome to The Probe. Tonight on The Probe, government is in hot waters. Arise Ghana, the nationalist movement, famed for notoriety in last month's two-day Kromayeshi demonstration in the capital, Accra, may be back on the streets in grand style. This time, the pressure group is fighting government over the recent hike in tariffs on electricity and water. Last week, the group, through its leadership, sent this strongly worded statement to the president. Listen.
We demand that government should immediately suspend this utility tariff increment. We are giving government 48 hours ultimatum to suspend the tariff adjustment or face the wrath of Arise Ghana and Ghanaians.
Arise, save Ghana now. Arise, save Ghana now.
You heard it. We are giving government 48 hours to suspend the tariff increment. Otherwise, they will face the wrath of Arise Ghana and Ghanaians. 2, we are once again reiterating our calls for the termination of the appointment of the Minister of Finance, Ken Oforiatta, who in this crisis has abandoned his office and is in the United States of America seeking medical care. This finance minister, who doesn't even have faith in our medical system, cannot be allowed to stay in office with obvious physical incapacity and driving Ghana's economy into unprecedented crisis. Clearly, the finance minister has infected his ill health on the Ghanaian economy, and the Ghanaian economy is sick as well.
Arise, save Ghana now. Arise, save Ghana now.
We are also calling on Parliament. We cannot do this alone. To expedite action, that is, if the finance minister and the president cannot take the bold step to pass a vote of censure on the finance minister to bring an end to an end of 5 years of fiscal recklessness, abuse of office, conflict of interest, and above all, crass mismanagement of the Ghanaian economy. Arise.
Save Ghana now.
Arise against this insensitive this utility tariff increases. Arise.
Save Ghana now.
Arise, the people of Ghana, and save our nation from the plunder that President Akufo-Addo has subjected us to.
Well, so that ultimatum has expired. But the big question is, will the government yield to these demands? And in fact, what options are available to government in such a time of economic crisis? The Probe, as always, is interactive, so feel free and be a part of our show tonight via all of our social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also WhatsApp. As always, The Probe is live on the Joy News channel, DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144, Joy 99.7 FM, and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, myjoyonline.com, Spotify, and other social media platforms. Welcome to the show once again. I am Blessing Sogah, and stay with us as we take a look at some of these concerns. So you're welcome back to The Probe. It's live on Joy 99.7 FM and here on the Joy News channel. Let me tell you about my guests for tonight. We do have joining us Ghanaian music legend Rex Omar, who's a leading member of the Arise Ghana movement. We also do have Pelgrave Boachidankwa, who's government spokesperson on governance and security. Benjamin Akoto is head of Complaints Consumer Protection Agency, and Dr. Yusuf Suleiman is an energy strategist. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on The Probe. I first of all want to take you back, retrospect, looking at some of the reasons accounting for the PURC's decision to announce an increment in tariffs for water and electricity. On your screens right now, for those on TV, are excerpts of the reasons why the PURC decided to adjust the figures to some 27% for electricity and 21% respectively for water. In terms of the reasons for which the decision is being made on water, we do know that the high cost of treatment of the water due to turbidity levels, very unimaginable levels, are part of the reasons for which we're seeing that arrangements by the PURC to slightly adjust upward the tariffs being allocated to water. But then in terms of electricity, there are three significant points to be on the lookout for. The PURC says, as part of the reasons, the figures are going up, first of all, because of the increment in fuel prices as well as gas, not just in Ghana, but around the world. Then they point to the high exchange rate, which is partly accounting for the problem. There's also the issue about the increasing demand for electricity, which forms part of the three key demands for which PURC is making their decision. So on your screens right now is obviously that trajectory of how the cedi has been performing over the period. 9 cities, 1 to 9, somewhere around 9%, I should be saying, when we started a year ago. But then in terms of where we are today, we're trading somewhere around 37.70%. That's the value that the cedi has lost, and that's accounting partly for the reason why if you need just $1, you will need 10 Ghana cedi in exchange. That's how bad the situation is. And there's been at least some 3 percentage point difference from the situation in which we were as of June 2022. And we never know how bad this may get. We're just hoping that, of course, the cedi will bounce back to life. But it's part of the key reasons why the PURC decided to do an upward adjustment of the figures. But beyond that as well, we know that these are the nominal figures. For those of you watching on TV, you have a sense of how we've moved a year ago when we're trading just about $1 to 6 Ghana cedi. Then we moved fast forward to somewhere mid-year this year, trading somewhere around $1 to 7.43. Then, as we speak, we know that we're trading somewhere around $1 to 10 Ghana cedi. But as of course, July, we were trading somewhere around $1 to 9 Ghana cedi. That was the range as of the time these figures were being put together. So it's forming the basis for which Arise Ghana says it's giving a 48-hour ultimatum to government to reverse the increment in the tariffs. That ultimatum has expired, so it's fair to first of all find out from Rex Omar what will be happening in the coming days. For you, Rex, what's the next line of action for you as a group?
Thank you very much. If you look at our press release, we gave the government 48 hours to withdraw the tariffs, the increment, because it is the reckless management of the economy that has caused the free fall of the cedi. It is a reckless management of the economy. Obviously, if the cedi is devalued, it will definitely affect the tariffs of the utilities. And who, for some time ago, decided that water and electricity must be given for free? Based on what did they do that? So all these things that are happening, at the end of the day, is the ordinary Ghanaian that is going to suffer. So for we as a group, we gave the government 48 hours, and now the 48 hours has come to pass. We are going to send the president a petition himself. Then after that, there's going to be, if he doesn't do anything about this, there's going to be a demonstration that this country has never seen. So on the tariffs, that is exactly what we're going to do.
What will be different in the petition this time round? Because I guess you've stated your reasons for which you are asking for the reversal of the tariffs. I guess the message I believe, has been sent or at least forwarded to the presidency, I guess.
I don't believe, because when you do a press release, it's the press that came there. So the president can pretend he hasn't heard it. So we believe we are law-abiding citizens. We believe in processes. So let's assume the president hasn't heard. So that is why we are going to do a petition and deliver to him personally, to his office, through his secretary. Then after that, we will continue to do what we have to do, because we are not going to stop. We will have to push and push and push, because look, what is happening in this country is very serious. Sometimes when you talk about some of these things, they will say, oh, Ukraine and Russia war and this and this and that and COVID. But we have 3 different countries surrounding us: Burkina Faso, Togo, Ivory Coast. None of them is going through what we're going through. So systematically, this government has devalued our cedi. Systematically, this government has recklessly managed this economy. And when we are saying that Ken Ofori-Atta and his team must be moved so that new people will come with new ideas, the president said, no, his ministers are doing marvelously well.
Yeah, but I mean, Rex, to be fair, if you look at, and we just brought excerpts of the reasons accounting for the increment in the figures, but if you read in detail the release from PURC, it appears that the fault even goes way beyond the factors within. They're talking, for instance, about some external issues such as the COVID-19 pandemic.
What are the external issues?
The Russian-Ukraine war. That seems to suggest how bad the situation is.
That is what I'm saying. The Russian-Ukraine war, is it Ghana? Is it only Ghana, Russia, and Ukraine what has affected? Ivory Coast is in West Africa. Togo is in West Africa. Burkina Faso is in West Africa. They are also there. They also were affected with the COVID. So they cannot be using the Russian and Ukraine war and the COVID to justify what is happening in this country. They can't do that.
And in
so
fact,
this is just an excuse.
Yeah.
This is just an excuse. It's not acceptable, because I'm not using any other country, for example. I'm using the very people. We are all in West Africa. And I'm using the surrounding countries around Ghana. So it tells you that they cannot be justified in saying that this is Russia and Ukraine war or COVID, because all these countries were also affected. How come that it's only in Ghana that we have to go through this? The cedi has been devalued for more than 45%. I heard you quoting the dollar.
Yeah.
Go to the market with cedi and say you're looking for dollar. The best price you can get will be 11 or 12 cedis. This is what is happening. And all these things are happening because of the reckless management of this economy.
Anyway,
and it all comes to the government.
Right. Point well made there. In fact, the notice you're serving to us is that you may be hitting the streets in the coming days. And as we are expecting it, a petition may hit the president's table by tomorrow. So let's hear from government and see what it is that may come through for your group in terms of the reversal of the tariffs. Pelgrave, so you've heard from the demands. A list and a raft of measures Arise Ghana believes will tackle not just the reversal of the tariffs, but also issues dealing with the general economic hardship that we're facing now. Are you, first of all, welcoming them? And do we get a sense that government may respond and reverse or suspend or perhaps withhold the announcement of any further tariff measures? Pelgrave, kindly unmute for me and make the point, sir.
Very good evening to you, Blessing, and very good evening to the Arise Ghana team. I am certain that their press conference that they did and the invitation that they gave to the media, which forms part of the fourth realm of the estate, has reached government's attention. I do not think there will be any need to petition government further on, and I do not even think that there will be any need for them to hit the streets. Let me set a few things right. The act that brought PRC into being over the past 25 years, Act 538, mandates PRC to regulate services, both in terms of rate examination and approval, as well as monitoring of quality of service of delivery for water, for ECG and the likes. And you would recall that there were a number of proposals that were made by the utility companies. Ghana Water made a proposal of close to about 300% increment. ECG made a proposal of close to about 148 increment. Netco made a proposal of close to about 113 increment. Gridco made a proposal of about 48% increment, and on and on and on and on. You would appreciate very well that because our government is a very concerned government and a government that is very committed to the Ghanaian people, we have ensured that the tariffs remain below 30%. And I'm very certain that the Arise Ghana team would appreciate the support that the government has given. And in relation to that as well, one of the key points for me in the utility tariff is the entire demarcation of the fact that some persons, if you look at the paragraphs that were issued by the PRC, the executive director, Dr. Ishmalaka, said that the commission gave considerable thought to the role of small and medium-scale enterprises in the country's economic development. In particularly, and he mentioned particularly for preservation of jobs and livelihoods, that the existing tariff is structured in a manner that slaps industry with punitive tariffs in order to subsidize. And I'd like to just state that persons that are barbers and hairdressers and tailors, dressmakers, welders, mechanics, gold, chop stores, chop bars, organizers, carpenters, and the like are going to pay a lower tariff. And I think that over the past 25 years, we haven't seen such a considerable, and I need to emphasize, such a considerable structure in terms of tariff payments.
Yeah,
and
but
then also,
the
right
point
up
is,
from May,
regardless of the accounts from the just if you may, regardless of the accounts from the PURC, it's quite clear that we will still have to pay more. 21% more for water and 27% more for electricity. It's coming at a time when inflation is also on the rise. This is unbearable for citizens, you agree. And I guess that's why Arise Ghana is saying, just find some means and ways of withholding all of this.
And we are sharing with the Arise Ghana team that the proposals that were made by the utility companies were even far more than the consideration that PRC and government has been able to put together. I restated that Ghana Water made a proposal of 300%, ECG made a proposal of 148, Netco made a proposal of 113% increment, VRA made a proposal of 37% increment, Gridco made a proposal of 48% increment. So if you look at all of these, clearly you have seen that government has cushioned the impact on the Ghanaian people, and we must appreciate that. And I'm sure that the explanations have been clearly given. And I want to be able to admonish the Arise Ghana team that their concerns really have already been addressed in the tariff regimes that have been played out.
Yeah, but when I was interacting with PRT earlier this week on PM Express, the clear indication we're getting is government could do some more in terms of coming through, cushioning Ghanaians through its subsidy measures. Why are you not opting for that?
Well, as we speak, I'm very certain that, proud to all the stakeholder meetings that were held right up from the beginning of May till now, and PRC had a lot more stakeholder meetings. They met with Parliament, they met with think tanks, they met with Association of Ghana Industries, they had regional meetings, met with Trade Union Congress, met with Parliamentary Select Committee on Mine and Energy, and on and on and on, Central Region. They went to all these places, and all the stakeholder conversations really aided government, and even then, to be able to come to an appreciable number, we believe that the Ghanaian people will be able to afford for electricity increment from the first of 27% and for water for 21%, based very much on the infrastructural work that has been put into the various utility industries.
Yeah, but you haven't addressed the question as to whether or not you do anything further about the 21 and 27% respectively. It's more or less a direct question. Will you suspend that, or withhold the implementation of that tariff?
The tariff has gone through large number of consultations and conversations. I'm not too sure where Arise Ghana were when PRC were meeting with think tanks and civil society organizations for them to be able to make an input. Government has already intervened. I realize that you want to re-emphasize your question. I also re-emphasize my answer to be able to state that the tariff utility companies brought in a higher tariff increment percentage based on some infrastructure work that they are put in place. Government, especially within this time when we are all facing global challenges, has made sure that we have reduced significantly our tariff below 30%. Our tariffs are below 30%. Our lights are continually on. Our water is continually flowing. A lot more infrastructural work is going on in government. And so all these consultations were taken into key consideration. Right up from May, PRC went across the length and breadth of this country, holding significant consultation with stakeholders, including civil society organizations. I'm really surprised, really, to see that Arise Ghana has risen up to come to the table to hold these conversations. A lot of the concerns that they have has already been addressed by government, and government has reduced these tariffs to make sure that the tariffs be rated below 30%, 27.15% for electricity, 21.55% for water, beginning on the 1st of September. We believe very well that the Ghanaian people can be able to afford this. And also taking into consideration that we have also assured that persons that are really the vulnerable, we're going to be paying lower tariff rates.
Okay, so here's the biggest point and fear for many who are governance experts. I mean, looking at the trajectory and how aggressive Arise Ghana has been over the last few months. In fact, July's demonstration was not the best of scenes we wanted to see. And they're serving another notice that from tomorrow, if the petition goes to the president, they may go ahead to hit the streets again. You may want to avert all of that and giving the economic times in which we find ourselves and its correlation to national security, just to take some proactive measures by further cutting down the figures.
Well, I'm very certain that when Arise Ghana goes into the papers very well and reads the level of work and really the level of support that government has given to PRC, they would come to the table for a conversation. I am of the opinion that people hitting the street is not one of the ways of solving issues. And the respected Bernard Bona is aware that when you come around the table and you begin to hold significant intellectual conversations with government will be able to prioritize and explain clearly why we have come to this decision of ensuring that the Ghanaian people are paying a lower tariff rate lesser than 30%, especially during these times. Some time ago, persons were paying a tariff rate above 30%, even when we didn't have a twin global crisis. And so it's important for Arise Ghana not to hit the street. I'm admonishing them that they should come around the table, understand why government is doing what government is doing, support government's initiative, and ensure that we continually run the country in the smooth manner in which we all desire to be in.
Interesting points you're raising there. And Bernard Mona, whose name you just mentioned, has joined us via Zoom. Let's see if they're willing to have a dialogue with you. We'll hear the perspective of the Consumer Protection Agency shortly, plus hear from some experts on this matter. But Bernard Mona, that service has been offered to you by government. Are you willing to dialogue, first of all, on the matter? Bernard Mona, you'd have to unmute so we get the points you're making.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, let me say that it is amazing to listen to my brother Palgrave. It appears that he's missed the point completely. Take note that our concerns were put just after the PURC went ahead to announce 21.55% and 27.15%. Clearly indicating that our concerns have not been met. If our concerns were in any way met, we would not have been issuing these concerns to the government.
Yeah, but when he says,
when you have government,
Bernard, just hold on for me. When he says, for instance, take a look at the demands ECG was making at the time, over 140% in terms of their proposition when it comes to the increment. GWCL, that's the Ghana Water Company Limited, over 300% increment. That's what they were demanding. There's a huge shortfall in terms of what it is that the PURC has announced. And as part of it, they point us to us clearly that government subsidies and interventions are partly accounting for a drop in the figures for ECG and that of water. Is that not enough to say that government has done something in spite of the economic hardship?
hold. And I just have to insist on this point, that when you come and tell me that government has actually reduced, what did government reduce? These are proposals that they were making. Those proposals were not tenable in any spirit. First and foremost, if you live in a country like ours, where the cost of living continues to escalate, where the incomes of Ghanaian workers is almost at a standstill, where you get up and then everything is going up. The ECG, the water company, and the NETCO are complaining of default payments or defaulters. The fact that people do not have sufficient money to even take care of their basic needs. They cannot attend to electricity, they cannot attend to water, food is already priced out of the reach of the people. And then you have a government agency that gets up and says that we are increasing utility prices because we are running inefficiency. Inefficiency is not cured by increasing the cost of the tariffs. We all know the number of times that we have complained that ECG is not able to mobilize the debt that is owed them by the various institutions. If you go to the Ministry of Finance, they owe so much to the Ghana Water Company, they owe so much to the Electricity Company of Ghana. So if the ECG decides that they are going to embark on an aggressive collection of their debt alone, that will be sufficient to pay all their debts. That will be sufficient to be able to bring back solvency into these institutions, failing to collect money from the big owers, and now resorting to we the small ones who are struggling to make a living. So now, what Palgrave is telling me, now I don't know his levels of income, whether his income is increased as the cost of living is increased. But you are working here and you are struggling to pay your water bill. So after you have closed from work, you get to your house. By fact that you are unable to pay, then the government cuts off your water. So you are struggling to get a bucket of water. Then by the time you return with a bucket of water, your light is gone off because you are unable to pay. And so in an economically stressed nation like this, what any rational government will want to do to your citizens is not to continue to pile prices for the ordinary people. What you do is actually to lower prices because already people are finding it difficult to pay. Now that they are finding it difficult to pay and you have gone ahead to increase it, somebody within the current limit, you are not able to pay. You have gone to increase it. Don't you think that the default rate is going to even be massive? And so when people default in paying, you are going to cut them off. When you cut them off, there is going to be lowered productivity in the country. I just don't know what kind of sense is going into the kind of thinking that our policymakers are putting across. When there is lowered, productivity, how do you expect that your economy will bounce back?
Are you willing to
dialogue?
And
so when we are talking, it is not just as the individual consumers, but we are also even talking for the business environment that they are already suffocating under high cost of almost everything.
Yeah.
The city is in its own realm. The dollar is in its own realm. Inflation is at a different level. Food prices are rising. Cost of labor is increasing. And you have an insensitive government that rises up and says that, oh, we have decided to cushion you because we are giving you only 21.5%. So accept it as a condition that will enhance your living. That certainly tells the level of insensitivity of President Akufo-Addo.
Yeah, but now the opportunity is here. Now the opportunity is here for dialogue. Are you willing to dialogue with government on this?
We have always said that, look, government should listen to us, and government has constantly failed to listen to the citizens. And if you continue, why? Going on the street has always been a last resort. So if government say that they are willing to sit down and dialogue with us, we will. I recall at a certain point that when Dr. Kwabena Donkor was Minister for Energy, he opened his door to civil society organizations and pressure groups to come and meet them. How many times have we not been condemned for making out our statements and telling them that, look, the path that you are following is inimical and dangerous for economic reclamation? Have they ever listened to us? Anytime we talk, you will have the president jumping onto the streets saying that those of us who are criticizing his government, we are saboteurs intending to destroy his government, or that we are seeking jobs from him and that we are job seekers. I am not seeking a job from him, and I do not intend, and Arise Ghana do not intend to sabotage our own government. We are saying that cost of living is at an unbearable level. Reduce it so that ordinary citizens can breathe. Is that too much to ask of our government?
Critical point you're making there about the issue on the figures and the need to cut it down. But what's the position, for instance, of a stakeholder such as the Consumer Protection Agency? Benjamin Akuta is head of complaints there. And Benjamin, ever since the figures went out, we've not necessarily heard the position of CPA on this. You are such a critical stakeholder when it comes to this, and I'm sure that you've been following the process ever since it started. Do we need a further cut in the figures?
Thank you, Bernard, and thanks for having me. I've been on your network, the multimedia network, on other platforms several times since the increment came up, so probably you may check that with your producers.
Right.
And again, our position is simple. The Consumer Protection Agency is necessarily not against a price increment or a price decrement. We stand for paying the right prices for ECG. We stand for fairness, okay? And given that it's been over 5 years, our problems are quite easy to understand because it's been 5 years since any major adjustment happened. And in Ghana,
Ben? Ben, you're making a point there about the last time since we saw that increment. Hello, Ben? Ben, if you're with us, I was just trying to understand the points you're making there. We lost you briefly in terms of your connection. But then you were talking about the last time since we heard of the increment, which was 5.
The last time any major increment was announced, right, it's been 5 years already. Okay. And you also will understand that they previously had the quarterly adjustment figures and all that they could work with. We are practically saying that any activity or any pressure, be it from external people or anything that would push prices down, as a typical consumer like myself, if electricity is zero or if electricity is, say, a peso, I am happy to pay less. So what we are rather saying and what we are telling the utility companies, and I'm glad Bernard touched on a few of those comments, that if there are debts, there are larger amounts that they are supposed to collect. That is where the attention should go. We should also be looking at cutting down on post-production losses. I could tell you that post-production losses for what we have generated is around 27%. And other economies like Senegal is doing it at 8%. So post-production losses alone is costing ECG and the generators so much that if care is taken from that side, probably could also help the prices to come down. And then again, we mentioned that the lifeline, those on the lifeline used to be 50 kilowatt hour for the month. And they gave examples as being efficiency and improvement in efficiency, as in there are more energy efficient gadgets for the markets now, having that they had a program that you could even exchange your old refrigerators, and the onion bulbs have faded out of the market and there are LED bulbs and all. Our suggestion on that was simple, that government or ECG in particular should identify their lifeline consumers and give them the lifeline. The lifeline shouldn't be for everybody. And again, if there are flat rates, you realize that once you jump the 50 kilowatt hour, you get into another rate. Once you jump into the 300 mark, then you also jump into another payment plan altogether. So if government could give us a flat rate payment, especially for domestic users, that would also be a plus. And then again, you would agree with me that there are areas and there are locations. I could cite an example of a community in the central region. They've had meters installed for over 3 years, and not a single consumer has paid a peso to ECG. Why should that happen? So in a way, I will agree with Bernard that they should go after those that owe them, so that at least their revenue generation activities and their money should also climb up.
Yeah, but whenever this conversation comes up, it appears we're very much silent on the service providers as well, and the need to have quality services delivered to us. It's as though we're just fixated on the cost and not mindful about the operational demands of both ECG and the Ghana Water Company.
No, that is why I'm saying we are not just sensitive to one side of it. That is why I mentioned that we stand for fair pricing. We are not just against increments. But once the prices are fair, juxtapose that against other economic factors. Indeed, they mentioned that the cost of power generated is another problem, the growth in demand for electricity itself, and their generation and operational cost. But then again, the supreme interest of the consumer should come first, being that, one, ask yourself these critical questions. Is the consumer able to pay for those prices as it stands now? And what is the quality of service that we are enjoying? Okay, and those are concerns that I believe any well-meaning Ghanaian would naturally want to pay less and enjoy more.
Right.
But
The demand now is to have the figures go down further from the 21 and 27 respectively. Realistically speaking, I mean, is this possible?
Yes, I would say it is possible, because being a consumer, a typical Oliver Twist, I can only ask for more. Because, Blessed, if you are paying 50 pesos per kilowatt hour, you'll be happy, wouldn't you?
Obviously.
You will.
Obviously.
Definitely, if there are other measures or there are other factors that government or stakeholders consider for prices to come down, why not? We all appreciate that economic conditions in the country, it's not favorable. They cited examples why they believe they deserve figures. Way back in May, Kofi Kapito granted an interview and did say that those prices were, the demands they were putting on Ghanaians were outrageous. And indeed it is. Because for anybody to demand anything above 100 or 50% without the corresponding, increase in prices, for corresponding increases in salaries and wages level, then it's also calling for hardship on Ghanaians.
Okay, then.
So we necessarily are not against anybody calling for utility prices to come down, but we also stand for a simple fact that we should pay realistic prices as it's demanded.
Benjamin, just hold on for us. So let's bring in Dr. Yusuf Suleiman. Obviously, he's an energy strategist, so will be able to tell us where government could be making some cuts here. And of course, he's had to stay on well past midnight from where he is joining us from. Doc, thank you so much for your time. So let's talk about the options available to government now, knowing that we're also facing an economic crisis. What should be that optimum decision for the government to take?
Yeah, thank you very much, Blessed, and good evening to you and our cherished co-panelists. Yes, I think it's a difficult call at this moment in time. When I heard the tariff increment for both water and then the electricity, I was a bit surprised. Why I was surprised with the fact that, the same consumer that is paying so much at the pumps, I'm talking about the petroleum side.
Right.
That same consumer is made to, it's about to pay another increment with respect to, water, electricity, and then these utilities. So yes, if you look at it from that angle, you can't say anything but to say that, they could have hold on to that, But however, if you look at the dynamics of what comes to power generation, and then and look at the various value streams, that is generation, transmission, and then the distribution. It's clearly it is clearly that whatever the cost input that is going to power generation has to be covered, and so they have to be midway somewhere. And so, first of all, the percentage that we put across were just outrageous. They were just no-go areas. So they were no-go areas. But I think they were targeting the moon, and so if they are not able to hit the moon, they could hit the stars. So that is, for this particular amount that is agreed upon, I want to believe that it is a mutual ground between what PURC think the consumer can bear,
right,
and then the utility service guys can also bear. However, there's one thing thinking about the consumer being able to pay, and practically whether consumer can really pay it or not. And I think one of the panelists mentioned something very critical. See, high tariff doesn't necessarily translate to quantums in terms of the returns. On the contrary, sometimes a little bit of optimum or low tariffs, if you're able to capture a lot of people paying, that could end up getting two results. Because what we fear is the fact that if the cost of the cost to the consumer becomes so much and that the consumer cannot pay, we're going to reach a point of inflection. A point of inflection means that the consumer is not able to pay, and some certain things might happen. There might be bypassing, of this payment, and when that happens, I think it's going to be counterproductive.
Yeah, but surprisingly, and I'm sorry for cutting through, what we've seen in this recent announcement with regard to particularly energy and electricity is that we've seen a revision of the lifeline terms as well. So you have that threshold moved between 0 to 50 kilowatts per hour, being revised to 0 to 30 kilowatts per hour, and then the figures are also up to 27%. So government is trying, or not necessarily government, but PURC is trying to expand the scope of persons who may be paying and then increasing the figure. So that may also be a challenge, right?
Yeah, so Blessed, you are right. You're spot on. Anyhow you look at it, I mean, nobody needs any increment at this moment in time. Even with the lifeline consumer we are talking about, there is about 9% increment with that range. So any increment of any form is something that consumer would have been, consumer wasn't expecting at this moment in time. And so what I want to call is that, before I come to the technical solutions, I want to call that, Arise Ghana could sit with government, to look at a midway, to understand, so that they can understand themselves. This is not a situation where we have to bring about a lot of security-related issues. That is not good for the country at this moment. Right. I think we all need to come together and find solutions to it. But coming to the technical point of view, why are we here? As we are struggling as we are. Blessed, I've called several times that, this problem is not a single-day problem that happens to us today, both the power sector and then the petroleum sector. I've called several that the petroleum sector, we should have long linked the power, link what you call the upstream and downstream with a refinery at the center to be able to supply finished products so that we don't depend on importation. That has collapsed our city. Power sector, I made similar call. We have to link up the petroleum sector and the power sector. All right? And then Ghana Gas should be the major conduit. So at this moment in time, I think the best investment that we have done is Ghana Gas. What we should have done is that we needed to just expand Ghana Gas, build it. Listen, I can tell you that we have trillions of cubic feet of gas within our shores. Here and I can boast about 2 trillion, 10 field or Talo field can boast about 200 billion of cubic feet of gas. Ghana Gas can only take 150. Why? What are we doing to ourselves? Yeah, and gas is the driver of cost of power as we speak now. Of course, we have managed to link up the power generation, the power to the petroleum sector. We have done a fantastic job. But more that we need to do is that the cost input that is coming, which is gas, that is currently very expensive in the international market. Actually, it's not the oil that is only increasing. Gas is also increasing. However, I think our gas has been hedged within a period where,
for the sake of time, what you're telling us now is in the long term, short-term solution, in just about 30 seconds, what should that be for government?
Yeah, so short-term, I think government can look at revise some of the tariffs, pushing. First of all, if you look at the petroleum sector, the price build up for what the consumer pays at the pump, there is something element on power. That's very strange. All right, so government can look at it holistically, both power and petroleum sector. Yes, times are very hard. Government can look at it. Yes, we need the revenue. That's undoubtedly. Right. But let's not let the drive for revenue make it counterproductive. So let's look at some of the tariffs, whether power sector or petroleum sector, to do that. Second point on what Bernard already raised and most of the panelists is very important. I don't think you can continue to pour water into a leaking basket. I think our focus now should be on plugging the leakages. And I can tell you, if you're able to arrest the leakages, ECG alone, about 30% waste, leakages. That is not acceptable in any power. They didn't have any moral right to ask for increment, as a matter of fact. But that's the fact. So yes, we have to concentrate on plugging the loopholes. If we do that, I think, and do that efficiently, we might not need to even increase
Interesting
tariffs.
points there. So here's what I'll do, because we just have less than 10 minutes to go. First of all, we'll hear from Palgrave, and then we'll give the opportunity to Rex and Bernard to tell us about the way forward. I'll come to the two of you to wrap up for us. So Palgrave, you've heard all of the stakeholders list out their concerns. First of all, about the leakages within the system, the need for government to take some measures to further cut down the figures. It appears that that's the ultimate demand. We all want that, isn't it? I'm sure that you sitting there also want some revision in the figures.
Well, so Blessing, I've listened to everyone share their views and opinions. I am still very confident, really, that government has had a look at a number of these figures before bringing these tariffs to bear. But it still does not mean that government will not have an opportunity to review it as we go ahead. We still have a few more days to the end of the year, the end of the month, for the tariff to begin on the 1st of September. I'm very certain that as we inch closer, when we begin to start paying our 27% for electricity and our 21% for water, we would be able to see some good amends. But government has really intervened into a number of these tariff regime. And it's important for me to also state that we have considered the very vulnerable who would pay a lower tariff structure. For the past 25 years, this has never happened in this country.
Yes, but going forward, the reforms, are we certain to see that? Because revenue leakage appears to be top of the agenda.
Certainly, revenue mobilization is very key on government's agenda. And then also leakages in terms of persons that are using utility that are not paying for. We have admonished continually the utility companies to go after persons that owe them so they can be able to recoup their money. And so that is a big priority on government's agenda. Okay, I'm very certain that the Ghanaian people will begin to see that a lot more money is going to come in from people that already owe a number of services that have already been given off from the utility services.
It may be unfair, but just deal with these issues for us in just a little over a minute. The concern, first of all, about the Ghanaian out there listening to us, what message will you send to them and those who are anxious that, well, getting to September and we have to brace up for more? And also touch on briefly the demands from the group, asking for the finance minister to take a bow, allow fresh brains to come through and to deal with our economic hardship.
Well, I'm very certain that the finance minister is very well equipped to continually serve in his role as finance minister.
The finance minister that has brought us to this level on our needs, how can that finance minister have been?
Bernard, I'll come to you respectfully.
To the worst economy in the world.
Respectfully, just hold on for me, gentlemen. Just hold on for me, gentlemen. Bernard, I'll come to you.
When we came to office in 2017 and we realized how the economy was mismanaged, the finance minister, through the economic management team under the leadership of His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Mamadou Bawumia, clearly restored this economy back on its tracks. I'm very certain and I have a lot of confidence in the finance minister to continually do his work in the manner in which the Ghanaian people would expect. I'm not going to bow to the conversations from Arise Ghana team and other persons that are calling for the resignation of the finance minister. We have seen credibly how he has administered his work to the much admiration of the Ghanaian people.
And you're certain that the Ghanaians will renew your mandate based on his performance?
I'm very certain that come the 2024 general election, the Ghanaian people who have seen how hard the government of President Nana Dankwa has worked right up to implementing flagship programs and even intervening with other social intervention, well, the Ghanaian people will make a good decision on the 7th of December 2024. And we are certain that on the 7th of January 2025, the President, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, will hand over power to an NPP government. And it's important also to state that for PRC, they have been able to ensure that lifeline in terms of barbers, hairdressers, beauty salons, tailoring, dressmakers, welders, mechanics, cold stores, shop bars, organizers, carpenters are paying a lower tariff regime. I mean, especially in this time than any residential consumer. And this is a hallmark of our government over the past 25 years.
Okay, then. For Rex and then Bernard Bonner, two of them joining us, so I'll just split the time for them. I'll start off with you, Rex.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wasn't expecting Palgrave to say anything different. I mean, when the president comes and says that his ministers are doing well, how would I expect Palgrave to say anything different? Look, what we're talking about, Palgrave is saying that the organizers and the tailors and all these people are going to pay less. It's just a talk. It's just a political talk. The whole situation is, look, these tariff issues, it goes even further to disturb the medium-sized businesses who ends up employed. You know, at the same time where our city is devaluing without any stop. At the same time that the dollar rate is going very, very, very free fall, very fast, this same time that tariffs are being increased. You see, so the whole situation, if you look at the space, the time space in which the cedi is devaluing and the dollar is also going up and the fuel price is going up and at the same time increasing these tariffs, honestly speaking, if it's not politics and the government will engage us, I'm sure that there will be a way. I mean, recently where government, some workers decided to go on the street, when government decided to raise their salary, what was the percentage? 15%. But then you get up and increase tariffs 21% and 27%, and you think it's cool. We believe that, seriously speaking, this country belongs to all of us. Nobody's interested in making any government unpopular. We are interested in making sure that the majority of the Ghanaian people are at least protected, especially the small businesses.
All right.
Some of these businesses we are talking about, they end up employing the rest of the masses. You know, so that is what we are saying. Governments will engage us. We are ready to engage government. But as usual, looking at the way Palgrave is speaking, it's like, oh, yeah, yes, government has done the best, whatever. But we believe it's political.
But it still says you have more room to engage and dialogue with government on this. Bernard Mona, for you? Bernard, I see that you're making some points about the finance minister. If you could just unmute and make your point.
Well, we have a very disastrous government, but permit my background. As you know, I am returning to my holy village, Sankana, from Tamale. So I just stopped by the way in Damango.
Yeah,
so
but once you face the light, we're okay. We can see you. So
yeah.
Yes,
so I just stopped by the roadside in Damango to finish this. But quickly, you have a finance minister who inherited so much. We had Dumsol leading to 2016.
Mr. Mona? It appears that we've lost connection to Bernard Mona, but point well made.
Yes, so they did nothing whatsoever. The finance minister brought no magic wand. They only inherited a booming economy. Number two, you have an economic finance minister who doesn't understand anything. All that he knows is to go out and borrow. If you have an economic minister, finance minister that goes out to constantly borrow, and you think that he has done any good job by going out there to borrow and not bringing about any innovation, and you come here, you are issuing these platitudes on your finance minister, I am disappointed. But you see, reality is that when you have an institution that has technical losses over 30%, and in the sub-region, our ECG is having one of the highest technical losses, and you are not doing anything to curb it, and you come and you just pounce on innocent and poor citizens and you expect us to keep quiet. We have failed to keep quiet over this matter, and we are saying that since we have an insensitive government that is supported by people like Palgrave and the rest, we cannot have common grounds. The government must come to the reality that we are the people, and the power of the people is stronger than those in power.
Interesting points you're raising there, Mr. Mona. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. 30 seconds each for you, Benjamin and Dr. Yusuf. I'll start off with you, Benjamin, briefly. 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to touch on two other things. Within the week, I've seen a news item carried by City News as asking 12 billion paid for 200. These are some of the examples. The desalinating plants in Teshi, what has become of it? You know, so they should pay attention to some of these things. We are not against, we want to pay fair and realistic prices. So whatever would keep our lights and our taps flowing at good prices, the consumers are willing to pay.
Dr. Yusuf?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I will just end by saying that I think preferably I would have wished that we would go through the difficult way, not the easy way of tariff adjustment, as much as I appreciate the fact that they have to be cost recovery, because doing so is something that we don't want to go into. We know the experience. So the proposal I'm putting forward to PRC, for the service providers, there is a component called, losses, distribution and transmission losses, or generation, distribution and transmission losses. That component is very huge. Let's make sure that we let the utility service providers bear that. I think if they bear it and they know how it feels, they shouldn't pass it on to the consumer. All right? Because it's so huge. And in fact, if we manage to do that and PRC insists or they reduce it, I think probably our utility service provider will sit up and then try to plug the leakages, take the bull by the horn. However, they are taking good steps and they have to stay the course, and they should move ahead with whatever they are doing, but they should treat customers with optimum respect, maximum respect. Yeah.
I'm grateful, Dr. Yusuf Suleiman, energy strategist. Also, you heard from Palgrave Bochidankwa, government spokesperson on governance and security. Bernard Mona, obviously part of the leading members of Arise Ghana, as well as Rex Omar. And then we had Benjamin Ekoto, head of complaint at the Consumer Protection Agency. I am Blessing Sogah. Do log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates for you there. For our radio audience, next is a walk with Jesus. Please stay with us.